Okay, so here we are back in Storyline. In the last video, I showed you a little bit more about the modern player, and in this video, I'm going to show you how to actually remove it. So I'm going to come over here to Player, and as you can see, this is where you have basically all of your options for the player, right? Appropriately named. You can see that right here, the player style is turned to modern. So I'm going to go ahead and click Classic. So this is like Storyline 1, Storyline 2. Before mobile responsiveness was important. It was pretty ugly back then, but it's okay. You see how it goes. I actually don't want any of this stuff on here though. I don't want the resources. I don't want the menu. Okay, so this is already looking like slightly better. Let's say I don't want the accessibility controls, I don't want the volume, and I don't want the caption, and I don't want the title. Let's just say I only want this sort of gray player. Okay, so I'll click OK. And let's see what that looks like by coming up here to preview and then the scene. This will get you pretty close. Honestly, it's clean enough. You can see down here, previous button is inactive, right? I can't click that because there's nowhere to go. I can click next though. So this is actually like pretty clean. It almost looks like a Polaroid picture in a way. So I'm not offended by it. I don't love it, but it's fine for built-in interactivity. Okay, so I like it, right? But I also want to adjust it a little bit more. So I can do that in a couple of ways. I can come over here and come to Colors and Effects and then Show Advanced Color Editing. So go ahead and click that. And then you have the ability to edit a lot of items within this player itself. So for us, we're gonna hit Base and then Main Background. And again, because this is just so dated, you can see that the top color of this background is actually slightly lighter than the bottom color, which is down here, but they're both that gray. It's kind of got a little bit of a gradient going on here. So one option is that we could actually change the player to be a color that suits our palette, right? So if we come back over here, let's find one of those colors, maybe this orange that I'm working with. I'll go more colors, and then I can grab that hex code. So I'm gonna just Control C and copy that over. And maybe that's what I want. Like, just for the heck of it, I'll come to more colors and I'll pop in that hex code. It popped over there for some reason. I don't know why it did that. That was funny. It did that once before. So try it 2 times. Again, you see that very funky gradient going on there. But like, that might be okay. The buttons here are still that gray, which might look a little bit funny. Maybe we go forward and we change the button style as well. So maybe we change the font as well. So what were we working with? We were working with Zilla Slab. So maybe if I just change these to Zilla, do you see how the buttons changed? I actually really hate that. So I'm going to see what Urbanist looks like, just because I know that was the other one that we were kind of keeping. That's okay. It's fine. Let's click OK just so that we see what that looks like. Oof, that right there is not looking so good. That grayed out, sort of inactive, but the rest is all right. So let's go ahead and click Next, Next, Next. So you can see those built-in buttons are there. I'm still not loving that, right? So it just still looks kind of dated to me. So I'm going to come over here, come to Player, Colors and Effects. I could go forward and actually change these button colors, and I could do that for each of them by coming to Button, Normal Background, and then choosing the background color that I wanted it to be. So maybe, maybe I just wanted plain old white. Let's see what that does. See, the hover state is still there. So I would need to come over here to Button and then also change Hover Background. And gosh, I mean, I really don't know. I'm not going to keep this so we can just see what it looks like, but you can see like, right? Like you can really kind of play around with all of these. To me, I would suggest, frankly, that you just get rid of them entirely and then do the cool, more kind of like modern look that I've done by adding my own navigation. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do. We're going to clear out the player entirely. So we are going to basically come over here to Base, Main Background. I'm just going to do Transparency 100 because remember, that just gets rid of everything. So bottom color 100. I have a bit of like an outline that's still somewhat there. main border, I think is maybe what it is. I'll just hit 100 again. Yep, that's what it is. And it went away. Do you see? So if I preview again, excellent. Now it's completely gone. The downside is that I have these like silly little buttons here, again, because they're part of the player. But what we're going to do is we're going to actually remove those on a slide-by-slide basis. So as you can see, this built-in interactivity, it basically says, jump to the next slide when the user clicks or swipes next. That's what's happening, right? That button is built into the player, but when I click next, I'm jumping to the next slide. Well, we can do the same thing. We can get that same effect using our own sort of style of button. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to come over here to settings, and I'm going to remove the previous and next button from each. So you can see what that did to my slide 1. All of these are connected. There's, right, the trigger is what keeps this together. This 1.2 is saying when I click next, I'm jumping to 1.3. Same when I click back, I'm jumping to 1.1. But when I'm removing this navigation as I am, like so, all of a sudden, it like loses its connectivity. But that's okay because we're going to re-trigger it using our own button styles. Let me show you how that's done. Okay, it's all gone. There's nothing left. Now we have to re-trigger it. You can see it's not linear anymore. They're all just kind of broken. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and then I'm going to insert an arrow. So you can come over here to insert, click an icon, and then just arrow. Any old arrow will do, and I'll search. We have some options here, right? So for the sake of just kind of showing you, I guess I'll just go ahead and click this one and click insert. And there it is. All right, so I'm going to make that a different color. Let's just say orange, I suppose, for now. And so we have kind of our back and next buttons. Let me remind myself what I originally did, actually. Sorry. So it was orange with a hover state. So orange with the hover state of that yellow. Let's go ahead and set that up. So currently it's orange. And now I'm going to edit state, new state. I want built-in hover. And now that I'm in sort of edit mode, I can come over here and choose what I want it to do. Although be a little tricky since I'm in this other view. I can't grab the yellow I want, but for the heck of it, let's just say that's fine. I'm actually gonna grab that yellow. Sorry, this is me being a bit perfectionistic. Grab my hex code, come back over here to my hover state, double click to edit, and now shape fill, more fill colors, gonna pop that in, and now it changes to what I want it to be. Gorgeous. Done. Okay, and you can see actually that center cutout, it's completely transparent there. So that's something that's pretty interesting. So whatever the background is going to be shining forward. Now, I'm going to just sort of use my eyeballs and figure out where I kind of want that to be. That looks about right to me. And now I'm going to go ahead and add a trigger. So come to the timeline. I'm going to call this double click next, because I'll be using a few of these. And I'm going to click new on the trigger pane. This is going to pop up. And what it's basically saying is I want to jump to slide, the next slide, when the user clicks next. No conditions, all the time. Very simple trigger. And I'm going to go ahead and click OK. And you can see over here, it's like basically populated that for me. So this is beautiful. What I now want to do is I'm going to copy it, Control C, paste it onto my next slide. So it copies that trigger on over with it. But now what I need to do is I need to basically add a back button as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to Control C that, and I'm going to keep it. You see my grid, if it's lined up, it's going to turn pink for me. I'm going to kind of use my eyeballs there. I'm going to call this back. And I want to actually have it facing the other way. So I'm going to click Arrange, Rotate, and then Flip Horizontal. Now it's facing the other direction. But what we need to do over here, we've changed the name of it, we've changed the orientation of it, but we actually need to change what it's doing, because right now it's saying it's jumping to the next slide when the user clicks back, which that won't work. That actually means it's going to progress us to slide 1.3, just like our next button will. What we want to do is we'll double click in here and say slide, previous slide when the user clicks back. And now all of a sudden we've got everything really triggered up nicely. So we have our back button, we have our next button. This slide is correct. This slide has nothing, but what I'll go ahead and do is I'm going to hold Shift to select both my back and next button, Control C to copy them, and then I'm going to paste them in on my next slide. And as I do that, you see it's taking me to slide 1.4. It's populating that in. It knows that that's the next slide that I want, which is exactly right. You can do that for every single one of these. Just Control V them in until I get to the very last slide. And what did I tell you? When we get to the end, we don't need a next button, right? Because we are very much at the end. I'm going to go ahead and click delete. And now we have our back button over here. A little ditty, I think this is a little bit too tight. Like if I were to be real perfectionistic about this, I would probably redesign this slide here, pop that up a bit further, and then re-import that slide so that it wasn't so crunched, but I digress. Now we have basically everything that's all together. So if I come over here to scene view, I can see, all right, everything seems to be basically ordered as it should be. So I'll come to preview. I'm going to hit this scene. This is a QA check. You should always do this. And now all of a sudden I have my button. So I have my hover state, super cool. Click it, can go backwards, forwards. And you see because there is that transparent cutout on this particular icon, I'm not able to click in the center of the button. So it is only where the fleshy part is on the outside, this hollow part in the center. If I click it, it's not going to take me forward. This is probably honestly not the best option for a button. If we come over here to the one that I actually chose, you see I don't have that issue, right? The entire item itself is hoverable. Here, that's just something to be aware of. So, but the interactivity is very much present, right? So all of a sudden, now I have my entire series, which I'm so excited about. So now what I have the opportunity to do, which you will too if you have a version of Articulate 360, is you can come over here to Publish and go to Review 360. This is actually going to publish it to your account. So I can call this, Gratitude Carousel for Tutorial. And I'll go ahead and click Publish. It shouldn't take a whole lot of time. And now I can go ahead and view my project. Awesome. See, no player, that player isn't there. It's responsive. So if I were to make this smaller window, you see it scales down. That'll happen on mobile as well. So that's really great. And then over here, if you are familiar with 360 Review, you have the opportunity to share it. You have the opportunity to maybe disable comments. I might actually do that if I were putting this, say, in a portfolio, just so that people weren't able to comment on it, even though they'd probably comment and say, this is the coolest. So I hope that's helpful for you. I hope that you can kind of see, how something like this can come along in Storyline. If I wanted to go that extra step and put this into a Rise course, I could do that as well by adding that as a story block, which I'll show you in the next video.